Hello, sixth graders. Welcome to sixth grade math histograms lesson. Pause while you write the lesson title in your math notebook. Today's objective is I can make histograms and use them to analyze data by completing practice problems with 100% accuracy in multiple attempts. Be sure you write this in your math notebook. Here's the standard we'll be working on today. Interpret numerical data by creating a histogram, box plot, and/or dot plot. We're going to start today's lesson with a key idea about histograms. A histogram is a bar graph that shows the frequency of data values in intervals of the same size. That's an important part. The height of a bar represents the frequency of the values in the interval. So let's take a look at this example. It's about how many CDs somebody owns. So it looks like somebody took a survey and asked people how many CDs they owned. And if they owned 0 to 9, then they would answer that. And it looks like there were 4 people who owned 0 to 9 CDs. And there were 3 people who owned 10 to 19 CDs. There was 1 person who owned 20 to 29, and there were 2 people who owned 30 to 39 CDs. Another key part of this is that you will notice the bars in the bar graph are touching. So that's important. And also, if you have an interval with 0 people in it, you go ahead and you put that interval there. So let's pretend that nobody had 20 to 29 CDs. You would still put that, put a space for that interval on your histogram. You would just have no bar there. So those are all really important aspects of how a histogram looks. So in example 1, we're going to make a histogram. The frequency table shows the numbers of laps that people in a swimming class completed today. We're going to display that data in a histogram. And if we look at our example, it gives us the steps. Here's our frequency table. Number of laps, 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, 10 to 12, 13 to 15. So these are all the same size intervals. And then the frequency is what we're graphing. So we draw and label the axes. Labeling the axes is really important. You need to have a title, just like any other graph. It needs to have a title, and you need to have these labels. So the label for this one, for the y-axis, is always going to be frequency. But then the label for the x-axis is going to vary because you're not always counting number of laps. It depends on what you're counting. So if we look at our number of laps, there were 11 people who swam 1 to 3 laps. There were 4 people who swam 4 to 6 laps. And there were 0 people who swam 7 to 9 laps. But we need to include that interval and just leave it blank. The bar height is 0. And then that continues. 10 to 12 laps was 3 people, and 13 to 15 laps was 6 people. And then this is a reminder of what we talked about on the last slide, where there is no space between the bars of a histogram. Now we're going to take a look at example 2, and we're going to handle each separate letter separately. The histogram shows the winning speeds at the Daytona 500. Example 2A asks us which interval contains the most data values. So if we look down at the answer for A, it says the interval with the tallest bar contains the most data values. And so we're looking for the interval that has the highest bar. So that is our step one for that, is look for the interval with the highest bar, and that is the bar that is at 150 to 159 miles per hour, and that's the one with the most data values. Question 2B asks us how many of the winning speeds are less than 140 miles per hour. So we need to look at everything that's 139 miles per hour and below. So when we look at our graph, we can see that there are 4 in the 130 to 139 bracket, and there's 1 below that. So 1 plus 4 equals 5. So really we're just counting up the speeds in the intervals below 140. So that would be our step for example 2B. Finally, we're going to look at example 2C. It asks us how many of the winning speeds are at least 160 miles per hour. So that means 160 miles per hour or greater. So we're looking at the other end of our graph down here. So we can see that there are 7 winning speeds in the 160 to 160 miles per hour interval, and 5 that are 170 to 179. So 7 plus 5 is 12. So that gives us 12 for that answer. So again, we are just counting up the ones that are 160 or greater. So that's our step. We are counting the speeds that are 160 miles per hour or greater. Remember, in order for this lesson to be complete, you need to be sure your notes in your ISN are complete, and you need to do your Google form questions, review the lesson if you need to, and complete your Big Ideas math assignment in your Math Spiral notebook. Submit that when it is 100% correct, not before, and track your progress on your playlist.